For 50 Cent sidestepped his own past critiques of Trump and posted to Instagram about how he would personally make sure Diddy doesn't get any favors from the president.
He hasn't been asked to do that yet, but he said he wouldn't rule it out. He said he'd, quote, look at the facts, noting he and Combs used to have a friendly relationship, but the two haven't spoken in years.
He used to really like me a lot.
He said, if I determine that somebody has been mistreated by the government, I would absolutely consider a pardon.
50 Cent just called out Donald Trump in a fiery rant. But what's even more shocking is the reason why Diddy's controversial pardon announcement seems to have sparked a chain reaction that reveals decades of tension. What's behind 50 Cent's unfiltered attack? And how is Diddy at the center of it all? Stick around as we uncover the messy truth of these interconnected Hollywood power moves.
For 50 Cent sidestepped his own past critiques of Trump and posted to Instagram about how he would personally make sure Diddy doesn't get any favors from the president. Writing in one post, quote, he said some really bad things about Trump. It's not okay. I'm going to reach out so he knows how I feel about this guy. So far, the trial has featured more than 20 witnesses over 14 days, and Combs faces charges of sex trafficking, racketeering, and transportation to engage in prostitution.
Trump's recent announcement about pardoning Diddy has set off a firestorm of opinions, and it's about more than just politics on the surface. It seems like a straightforward gesture, a powerful man using his influence to right a wrong. But when you dig just a little deeper, the picture becomes far more complicated. Diddy's legal troubles have been looming for years, and this sudden intervention from Trump raises more questions than answers. The timing, the players involved, and the overall implications. It's all connecting in ways no one saw coming first. Let's break this down in a surprise move. Donald Trump revealed his intent to pardon Sean Diddy Combs. The announcement came out of nowhere, blindsiding everyone from political pundits to hip-hop fans. And while Trump has a reputation for throwing out headline-grabbing pardons, this one strikes a nerve for very specific reasons. Let's not forget, Diddy has been entangled in his share of scandals, with accusations still following him about financial dealings, contract disputes, and even cases as serious as allegations of violence and coercion. Although no conviction stood firm, the mere suggestion of misconduct kept his name mixed with controversy for Trump to jump into this swampy battlefield. Was bound to cause an uproar and uproar. It was a swift and fierce one. Social media lit up within minutes of the announcement, and opinions poured in from every corner of the internet. Some praised Trump for a bold, unexpected move, while others didn't hold back about their suspicions of ulterior motives. A viral tweet read, "We're seriously pardoning billionaires now. What about actual victims of the system?" Meanwhile, one user clapped back with, "It's the checkers move before the chess game." People are questioning whether this act is genuinely about Diddy, or if Trump is using him as part of a larger strategy, perhaps tied to appealing to certain communities for political gains. Remember, this isn't the first time Trump's pardon list has left people scratching their heads, from rapper Kodak Black to ex-strategist Steve Bannon. Trump's history of controversial pardons is extensive. It's almost like the outrage is baked in by design. Each pardon he's handed down has sparked debates over power, privilege, and political motives. But what makes the Diddy announcement so unique is the cultural weight behind it. We're not just talking about a businessman or political figure here. Diddy represents something much bigger: hip-hop royalty, cultural clout, and an empire built on rebellion against the norm. And the backlash isn't the only reaction that's lighting up the internet. 50 Cent's response was quick, loud, and downright scathing. But his anger wasn't limited to what Trump had done. It felt like something more. That's the part catching people's attention. The part nobody's fully dissected. Yet why would 50 Cent care so much? Could this pardon have unearthed personal stakes, buried tensions, or even decades of history? Whatever it is, it's clearly not just about politics for him. That fiery reaction carries weight we can't ignore, and it's had everyone looking deeper into his past with Diddy.
Back when you hosted The Apprentice, you mentioned once in 2012 that Diddy was a good friend of yours back then. He has since found himself in some very serious legal trouble.
Yeah, that's true.
Would you ever consider pardoning him?
Well, nobody's asked. You had to be the one to ask, Peter, but nobody's asked. But I know people are thinking about it. I know they're thinking about it. I think some people have been very close to asking. First of all, I'd look at what's happening, and I haven't been watching it too closely, although it's certainly getting a lot of coverage. I haven't seen him. I haven't spoken to him in years. He used to really like me a lot, but I think when I ran for politics, he sort of, that relationship busted up from what I read. I don't know, he didn't tell me that, but I'd read some little bit nasty statements in the paper all of a sudden. You know, it's different. You become a much different person when you run for politics and you do what's right. I could do other things, and I'm sure he'd like me, and I'm sure other people would like me, but it wouldn't be as good for our country. As we said, our country's doing really well because of what we're doing. So I can't, it's not a popularity contest. So I don't know, I would certainly look at the facts. If I think somebody was mistreated, whether they like me or don't like me, it wouldn't have any impact on me.
Okay, so wanted to let you listen to that exchange there. That was asked by Peter Doocy, and whether or not the president would consider a pardon of Sean Diddy Combs, with the caveat, of course, if he were to be convicted here. He essentially said he hasn't really thought about it. He's got to see the facts, but he didn't rule it out.
Ryan, the pardon power, obviously one of the president's favorite tools right now, flexing his muscles again this week with a series of high-profile pardons, many of them controversial. President Trump just yesterday was asked if he would consider pardoning Sean Diddy Combs if he's found guilty of racketeering and sex trafficking. What did the president say?
Yeah, Peter, the president said he hasn't been asked to do that yet, but he said he wouldn't rule it out. He said he'd, quote, look at the facts, noting he and Combs used to have a friendly relationship, but the two haven't spoken in years. Combs, of course, has not been convicted, but he is facing trial right now for charges that could lead to life in prison, including sex trafficking.
That is so interesting, because if there are Trump supporters and he makes an insinuation even that the government has overreached, say, in racketeering, they might buy into it just because they're Trump supporters.
But it is his government now, right? It's his Justice Department. So it's his prosecutors who are prosecuting this one now. No, they did not initiate this case. But in other cases that they did not initiate, like the Eric Adams prosecution, when his DOJ came in, they kneecapped that one. They had it dismissed. This one, you know, Jay Clayton and that the prosecutors from that district went forward. So, you know, that's his DOJ. They had to at least approve the trial, I would assume. I don't think Pam Bondi just let this happen without knowing. So, I think it's just President Trump doing what he does often, which is just speak off the cuff. It works well for him. But I think that's all that was. I don't think there's really too much to it. I'm pretty sure no one has approached them.
Yet you said they're close to it. I heard you say that, and Trump insinuated that too. Yes, you did, or a little bit.
No, I said that's what he was saying. They're close to it.
What does that mean?
But they're close to it. I don't know if they're close to it, Harvey. I really don't. I wouldn't. I have no information. There's a guy on the right that might be able to help us, but he can't help us.
That's what I'm thinking. Hey,
Mark. Get in trouble.
Mark, I know, Mark. This is a political and not a legal issue.
So can we go back to 23.1 for a second? Why is it in New York? Nobody, I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to get me into talking about
politics.
It's crazy.
I could say quite a bit about this for a variety of reasons, but I'm going to just, in deference to his honor, in deference to my firstborn, who I love dearly, I'm going to return to asking Joe what he thinks about 23.1 and why it hasn't been challenged.
I don't know. It should be challenged. There's no practical basis for it, and here especially. So I don't know the answer to that, Mark. I really don't, and it should be challenged. But it's crazy. But you know, you're doing the right thing, obviously, because you know you want to make sure that you don't ruffle any feathers. And your daughter, by the way, your daughter's a terrific lawyer. Tenny is. I'm very impressed. You know, there's people who are children of great lawyers who become lawyers, and you know it's not the same.
Boy, you and I know exactly. I'm sure we're reading each other's minds right now, but I that's why I take that as high praise for her. So I appreciate.
No, she is. She's something else. I'm very impressed with her. That opening was phenomenal. And that's my opening summations and crosses my daily bread. It's what I love and it's what I study and what I really I think I perfected it. And that was as good as I've seen. So
50 Cent wasted no time letting the world know exactly how he felt about Trump's decision to pardon Diddy. His response wasn't just blunt, it was personal. Less than an hour after the announcement hit the news, 50 posted on Instagram writing, Wait this. Guy gets a pass for what? The caption alone was cutting. But what really caught people off guard was the video he paired it with, featuring Diddy back in the early 2000s, followed by a clip of himself laughing hysterically. It was a not-so-subtle jab. And to anyone paying close attention, it was obvious this wasn't just about the pardon. This was about years of buried tension finally boiling over in public. The intensity of his reaction raises an obvious question. Why would 50 Cent care this? Much about a decision that many in the music industry seem to be brushing off. It wasn't the first time Trump had issued a controversial pardon after all, but for 50. This moment struck a nerve. His history of jabs and shade toward Diddy only adds fuel to the fire. Remember in 2015 when 50 called Diddy's business deals suspect during a now infamous interview, or the time he accused Diddy of being overly fake on social media after an award show. These weren't one-off moments, they were breadcrumbs, signals of a deeper animosity smoldering beneath their public personas. Some fans and insiders think 50's latest response was more than just trolling. They believe his focus on the pardon was a way to air his long-running grievances with Diddy under the guise of current events. A source close to the situation noted 50 Cent's issue with Diddy isn't really about Trump at all. It's about all the history between them. Money, power, pride, it's personal. And to be fair, it's easy to see why fans are connecting. 50's critiques of Diddy often go beyond general disapproval, slipping into territory that feels personal, almost calculated. His Instagram post wasn't just a meme he wanted people to remember, something to see Diddy in a particular light even. More, there's a sense that 50's outrage stems from what he perceives as hypocrisy over the years. Diddy has publicly aligned himself with progressive causes advocating for justice and change, for Trump to step in with a pardon, and for Diddy to accept. It might feel like a direct contradiction to everything he's claimed to stand for. And if there's one thing 50 Cent thrives on, it's calling out what he sees as contradictions or weaknesses in others. But let's not ignore the context. The rivalry between these two titans of hip-hop has never been limited to quiet disagreements or private disputes. It's decades deep and riddled with moments like this, explosive and impossible to overlook. This latest chapter seems to point to something more layered, more deliberate. And while 50 framed his outrage around Trump's decision, it's starting to seem like the real focus wasn't on the former president at all. It was squarely on Diddy. What's clear is that this reaction wasn't impulsive and it wasn't random. It's another piece in the long, messy puzzle that is 50 Cent and Diddy's relationship, one dominated by ego competition and bad blood, that bad blood. It didn't start here for years. Fans have speculated on where and how it all began. And the truth, it's even more tangled than you'd think.
And the truth, it's even more tangled than you'd think.
That he hasn't been asked formally, but it sounds like he said people were sniffing around about possibly doing this. And then in the end, he said, if I determine that somebody has been mistreated by the government, I would absolutely consider a pardon. So, Mark, you were right in the middle of the Hunter Biden pardon. I know this. And you knew about it long before it broke, is my recon. So you know something about this or not. You are, in some way associated with the lawyers, and one of whom is your daughter on the Diddy side. Has there been an overture? Because now that I start thinking about it, with the Chrisleys and all these other people, this is not the craziest thing, even though it seems pretty crazy. Has there been any outreach?
Joe, I've got a question for you. Suck me into a
That's the hot potato.
23.1 here. I have a question, Joe. I don't understand. You practice in New York, famously practice in New York, and condolences. I think Bernie Kerik died today, and I think you were very close to him, at least at one point. I haven't talked to you about it. If you were, and I think you were, I have my condolences. I don't understand, and Harvey and I talked about this for 2 podcasts, and he slammed me the first time, and then the listeners slammed him, so I already did the reason, my kind of analysis as to why it's unconstitutional. What is perplexing to me is it was re-upped, meaning they once again had this local rule 23.1, And one of the comments was the dearth or some language like that about any case decisions, meaning nobody has challenged this. Why has nobody challenged 23.1 in New York? You guys aren't shrinking violence. I don't understand.
I'm going to object. I asked a question, and you just simply ignored my question.
You went so far off your question, Harvey. I don't even remember what your question was.
Okay, so hold on. So then I'll address.
Good job, Mark.
I'm sorry, Mark, but you can't. You're just ignoring me.
We'll come around to you first.
No. Joe, can you answer my question? Do you think? Because here's what I'm thinking: that he has as much as said Diddy started taking shots at me when I started running for office. And he used to like me a lot. And the way things are feeling with the backdrop, if Diddy starts to like him again a lot, that this could be his safety net. Am I crazy here?
You're not crazy. I mean, look, it's clear from the president's words, and I know how he speaks, I decipher the code. No one has approached him. No one has approached him, but he knows that people are thinking about approaching him, and they're thinking about saying something, and they're close to saying something, but no one has. So that's I think a message is basically saying, if you get back in line, and if you do what you used to do, which is adore me, we'll consider it. Whatever. He's got to have people around him that are going to look. Ultimately, one thing about President Trump, he makes the final call, no matter what. His advisors are just that, advisors. They're not people who make ultimate decisions, but people will advise him on that. It wouldn't be a popular case if a jury convicts here to do that. But here's the thing: if I'm Diddy and I'm Diddy's lawyers, and Tenny and Mark Ignifilo and the crew, this is the last thing I want to hear. This is the last thing I want out before in the press with the jury, because God forbid a jury is like, oh, so even if we convict him, he's going to get off anyway. Oh, all right. Well, then it's not that big of a deal. He's not going to spend life in prison. He's going to get a pardon, but we're going to convict him anyway because he's proven to be a bad guy. He's proven to be unlikable. He's proven to have done some horrific things. If at the end of the day, he's not going to spend life in jail anyway because, he's going to get pardoned by the president.
This tension between 50 Cent and Diddy didn't just appear out of thin air. It's been brewing for decades, while today the headlines seem to focus on Trump's pardon announcement. Anyone who has paid attention to hip-hop culture knows this is just another chapter in a long-running feud. For years, these two icons have clashed, taking their rivalry far beyond the music charts. It all traces back to their early days in the hip-hop industry, when egos were big and competition was even bigger back in the early 2000s. Both artists were at the top of their game, but their paths couldn't have been more different. Diddy, already an established mogul, was sitting on an empire built from Bad Boy Records, a fashion line, and endless streams of brand deals. 50 Cent, on the other hand, was the scrappy newcomer storming into the game with raw energy and relentless drive to dominate from the outside. Their contrast might have seemed purely professional, but behind the scenes, a simmering sense of tension started. Early, one of the first moments that hinted at their rocky relationship came in the form of subtle shade. 50 Cent, known for his sharp tongue, once called out Diddy for dancing too much in his videos. What seemed like a harmless joke to some was actually a jab at Diddy's larger-than-life personality, one that 50 has always distanced himself from as the years went on. Shots like these stopped being subtle. 50 Cent began openly criticizing Diddy's business acumen, famously accusing him of exploiting artists under the Bad Boy label. He's not doing nothing for them. Everybody that works with him ends up broke. 50 was quoted saying during a radio interview in 2016, Diddy rarely responded to these attacks, at least not directly, but insiders say he was keeping tabs. And then there was the vodka war. Both men famously dipped into the luxury liquor industry. With Diddy pushing Cairo and 50 Cent representing F and vodka, the rivalry bled straight into their marketing campaigns, with 50 frequently teasing Diddy's product in videos, even calling it puffy juice, and questioning Diddy's taste. It wasn't just about alcohol. It was about who could claim dominance in an industry far removed from music. These public clashes reinforced one thing: their issues weren't just about differing personalities. They were fighting over territory, but their feud wasn't just tied to business. It played out in their music, too. 50 Cent's social media jabs were one thing, but there were more calculated digs, like in interviews and even tracks where veiled references to Diddy kept fans buzzing. Diddy, ever the king of smooth silence, stayed composed publicly. But insiders hint at plenty of behind-the-scenes tension. These two guys are trying to say the same thing to the culture. I run the room. One industry insider explained for both men this was bigger than disagreements. It was about power and legacy. So when 50 Cent lashed out over Diddy's pardon, it wasn't shocking, it was personal. His reaction wasn't about the pardon on its own, it was yet another battle in a conflict that's lasted decades, and this fight, it's always been about more than music.
He did say that. Hey, Joe.
By the way, that's not Joe's best. That's not Joe's best.
It was a good line. It was a good line.
Joe's best line is on camera in A$AP Rocky in the criminal courts building when Lewin said something. He said, "Oh, you're going to go get reversed again in the Ninth Circuit
for lying to a jury."
Yeah, he says, "Stop with the steroids." And Joe, without missing a beat, says, "Well, hey, hunchback."
I said, John, it's not steroid. It's just eating well. I work out very hard. I eat well. You should try once in a while. Grab a salad instead of a donut, you fat fuck, and you won't have that big hangover belly and the hunchback. And that happened to all take place on camera, by the way. But he started.
Oh, my God.
I don't start, but I do finish.
Hey, Joe, it seems like the prosecution made some headway this week on racketeering. That you look at Diddy and you start hearing about arson and kidnapping, especially from Capricorn Clark, where she is talking about, threatened to end up in the East River, that Diddy goes wild when he finds out that she used to work with Suge Knight, takes her to a vacant building for 5 days, gives her a lie detector, with all of his associates. It's feeling racketeering-y to me.
It's feeling Diddy to me. Look, a racketeering enterprise is a racketeering enterprise. It's not a lunatic who is a jealous boyfriend, a control freak, not a nice guy, a domestic batterer, someone who acts like a piece of garbage to his employees. That's not what a racketeer is. That doesn't make it a racketeering act, Harvey. I don't see that as an act in furtherance of a racketeering scheme. This has a racketeering enterprise, which is traditionally, understand, it's for a criminal organization, right? So an enterprise that's established to commit crimes. Bad Boy Records in no way, shape, or form was established for that purpose. It doesn't turn into a criminal enterprise because one person in that organization commits some crimes. So I still think there's a big gap here where, look, bad guy, proven, criminal, proven, domestic batterer, proven, drug abuser, proven, all those things they've proven. We're in federal court though, okay? And we have a racketeering sex trafficking trial. And I think there's a big void in the evidence. That's why we keep seeing that Cassie video over and over and over again. It's not evidence of racketeering. It's not evidence of anything but a domestic assault, which it is. It's a disgusting video. But again, I know if Nancy here, she'd be screaming at me and saying, "Oh, it's racketeering," or Ashley Banfield
holding up a Tootsie Roll,
Tootsie Roll, whatever that meant. And Ashley Banfield saying, what a racketeering act is, even though there's no enterprise. You really have to understand the law before you can opine on this stuff.
So let me ask you something about that. I get the mafia, has kind of a below.
Not just the mafia.
I know. But it's you could have a front organization that seems legit, but underneath it, they're running a drug ring, they're running a hitman ring, they're running something that's a criminal organization. But at a point, could a jury say, look, it's not a specific crime organization, to sell drugs or guns or hit people or do hits on people, but he is using Bad Boy and all of the people under him in Bad Boy to commit crimes, that Bad Boy is being used for Diddy to always get his way no matter what it takes. If they look at Bad Boy that way, if they look at it like it is just a tool of Diddy's to get what he wants at all costs and violate the law.
Money and power have always been
at the heart of the feud between 50 Cent and Diddy. This isn't just two rappers throwing insults for attention. It's a battle fueled by business empires and the constant fight for dominance. Both men went beyond music. Long ago, building massive brands tied to their names. But here's where things get messy. Their ventures didn't just grow in parallel. They collided, and when egos as big as theirs overlap, the fallout is impossible to ignore. Let's start with the vodka. Wars in the mid-2000s. Diddy struck a lucrative deal with SIAC, transforming it from a relatively unknown brand into a premium name that practically defined luxury at the club. It was clear Diddy wasn't just selling vodka, he was selling a lifestyle. And he wanted everyone to know he was the man behind its success. But then came 50 Cent with his own product F and vodka, instead of quietly carving out his share of the market. 50 did what he does best, he made it personal. He took aim at T-Rock, calling it Puffy Juice in multiple interviews, mocking the way Diddy marketed it and claiming that Effin was the superior product and this wasn't just playful rivalry. 50 even posted a video where he poured out Ciroc saying no one should drink that stuff. Diddy didn't publicly respond, but you'd better believe the tension escalated behind the scenes. It isn't just liquor, though. Their competition has spilled into nearly every sphere of influence they've touched. Take Revolt TV, Diddy's media network, which positioned itself as a hub for cutting-edge content targeted at the hip-hop generation. While Diddy pushed Revolt as a forward-thinking platform, 50 Cent publicly downplayed the network, shading its reach and insinuating that it wasn't as influential. As Diddy claimed, meanwhile, 50 has his own Empire TV shows, film projects, and even iconic soundtracks that have dominated entertainment. He often flaunts his wins, loudly showcasing his successes in a way that feels like he's daring Diddy to outdo him. For every business move Diddy makes, 50 seems to have a counter, and neither man is willing to admit defeat. And then there's the narrative around how they've treated the people they've worked with. 50 Cent has repeatedly accused Diddy of mishandling his bad boy artists, calling him out for failed careers under his watch. This type of critique is strategic. It damages Diddy's reputation as a mogul while letting 50 present himself as an artist who takes care of his circle, whether it's true or not. The accusations have only added to the animosity industry. Insiders say this rivalry isn't just about products or numbers, it's about legacy. For these two, dominating the culture matters just as much as dominating the market. One source explained, when one makes a public move, the other feels the need to hit back even harder. At its core, this feud is about control. Both Diddy and 50 Cent see themselves as power players shaping not just the music industry, but the worlds of fashion, media, and even alcohol. They're not just competing over who's got the bigger hit or better brand, they're fighting over who's at the top of the cultural hierarchy, and when that kind of battle plays out in public, it always gets personal.
It always gets personal.
You're complaining that nobody's challenged it. You could challenge it. Why don't you challenge it?
If Tenny was not involved, I would, and I would do it.
He's right, Harvey. He's right, Harvey. He's right. I mean,
I'm not going to do it with my daughter in the headlights. I mean, it just wouldn't. I mean, it's already. I've already quipped sometimes when I wish I had taken it back. But Joe, I have another question for you along those lines.
Okay.
Harvey's not going to jump into the middle of this again and try and shut me down when I ask the question. Haven't you always thought that, and I've made this argument, I want to hear if you think I'm on the line, that I always talk about the genesis of these, I don't 23.1 isn't necessarily a gag order, but it's this idea in
which
recent
are unconstitutional, by the way.
Right, exactly. And in recent years, it's always of the defense. But the genesis is Shepard versus Maxwell, which F. Lee Bailey made his bones on, which was to reverse a conviction to protect a defendant's right to a fair trial. Where in the world did this get turned upside down that now the prosecutors, who, by the way, have enough handmaidens out in the media cheerleading for them, speaking of which, Nancy Grace and you yesterday, which, by the way, do you have that clip? You got to play the clip, Harvey. You cannot let our listeners
go to Tubi. You can watch it for free. It's called The United States versus Sean Combs Inside the Diddy Trial. And it is
okay. So I watched, and Nancy was going wild about, what was she saying, Joe, about your eyes?
I mean, aside from screaming at me to the point where I couldn't even understand what she was screaming, I did finally hear her say, "What are you going to start with those wild eyes again?" Because I was like, I was really being animated and like, Nancy, you don't know the law. You don't know the law. She, oh, there you go with those wild eyes again. And I took the bait.
Oh, you like that? Like that.
And no, don't step on the punchline. And you said,
I don't recall.
he said, at least my eyes move.
He did
When
say
it comes
that.
to 50 Cent
When it comes
and
to
Diddy,
50 Cent and
their feud has been impossible to ignore because they've never left it behind closed doors. Diss tracks, shady interviews, and full-blown viral moments have made their rivalry a spectacle, a feud that isn't just part of their history but seems woven into their legacies. While most artists might quietly settle their differences, these two have turned their clashes into performances for everyone to see, and audiences have eaten it up every time. One of the earliest public shots came from 50 during his 2005 track Piggy Bank, where he threw insults at multiple artists, including Diddy, accusing him of riding on the coattails of other acts. To stay relevant, the line wasn't subtle, and it made sure one thing was clear. 50 was never going to respect Diddy's business moves or his place in the industry. This wasn't the last time either. 50 has turned to music over the years to call Diddy out in ways only he could, blending beef with entertainment in a game. Many rappers don't dare to play for long. Diddy, however, has typically avoided responding in his music, keeping his side of the feud outside the studio. But it hasn't all been about tracks. Social media has amplified their rivalry to a new level in 2016. 50 posted a now infamous Instagram video where he outright mocked Diddy's Cyrock commercials, pretending to be confused about what Diddy was even trying to sell. He joked, "Is it supposed to be vodka or a lifestyle, because I'm not buying either one?" Fans laughed, memes were born, but the message was loud. 50 wasn't going to let Diddy's success go unchecked, and Diddy, he stayed quiet in public as he often does. But insiders say his silence wasn't disinterest. It was strategy. Diddy's approach has always been to sidestep 50's direct hits, keeping his image polished while letting 50 look like the aggressor. Whether planned or not, it's worked in his favor. More than a few times, fans have played a huge role in keeping this feud alive. Every social media jab or sly comment turns into debates, theories, and endless reactions online. Some fans think 50's relentless shade is just his way of staying in the headlines, while others argue that Diddy's quiet responses show his inability or unwillingness to stand up to 50 directly. And it doesn't stop there every time the two cross paths in public or even mention one another in passing interviews. Twitter and blogs light up with speculation. It's not just a feud for the culture, it's become part of hip-hop's larger story. What's fascinating, though, is how this public rivalry benefits both men. For 50, it reinforces his image as the unfiltered, non-nonsense provocator who takes shots at anyone, no matter their status. For Diddy, it lets him remain the calm, untouchable mogul who's above the drama. But make no mistake, both are calculating. Their drama grabs headlines, captivates fans, and reminds everyone why their names still carry weight, while it can feel like pure theatrics. There's no denying, this isn't just about petty insults or internet memes, it's deeper. Their public sparring is as crucial to their brands as the music and business ventures they've built over decades. The feud isn't dying down anytime soon, and with every new jab, every public moment of shade, it continues to fuel their careers and add to their complex legacies. This feud between 50 Cent and Diddy has grown far beyond any one moment. Whether it's Trump's pardon announcement or the vodka wars at its core, this isn't about allegations, business deals, or Instagram posts. It's about two larger-than-life egos determined to prove who truly sits at the top. Their decades of public clashes are as much about cementing their legacies as they are about power and control. But the question remains, after everything, is there even a chance for peace between them? Or is this rivalry just too deeply embedded in who they become? One thing's for sure, it's not.